Geraldo Rivera joins us right now, as he does on every Friday. Hey, Geraldo, good morning to you.
I can get you a gefilte fish meatball there, Steve.
That sounds delicious. Thank you, Geraldo. Hey, Geraldo, what do you make of the Fox News alert? Last night at 7 o'clock, the South Korean delegation came out of the West Wing and announced that the President of the United States had agreed to sit down face-to-face with Kim Jong Un, the dictator of North Korea. It's clearly historic. What's your point of view?
I gave the President of the United States a standing ovation. I think it's breathtaking, it's audacious, it's bold. It will be historic. People have to understand that what we're talking about here isn't a freeze in North Korea's nuclear program. It is the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. I think that this is huge. This is as big, if it happens, it's as big as Nixon going and opening up China back in the early 70s.
But Geraldo, so it is big and it is historic. Everyone is talking about it, some characterizing it carefully, others mischaracterizing because of the view they have of this president. How do you make sure these talks actually turn into denuclearization as opposed to North Korea buying more time? Because that's what we've seen for the most part from dictators that want to keep their nukes.
The beauty of this, Major, is that, as I understand it, North Korea has agreed to not test any nuclear missiles, any intercontinental ballistic missiles during the period of these negotiations. They have also agreed very expressly that the U.S. South Korean military exercises scheduled for next month can go on as they are scheduled. These are tremendous concessions. You know, it's almost as if we can't lose. If they stop testing, if they allow our joint military exercises to continue, and the President of the United States actually talks to Kim, I think that only good can come of this. He's the first sitting U.S. president ever to visit North Korea. I think that this is huge.
Well, we don't know that it's going to be in North Korea.
Well, yeah, we don't know where it's going to be. It's going to be sometime within the next 2 months. Listen, Geraldo, for a long time, you've known the president for a long time. And ever since he was elected, you have been saying, hey, to the media, to the naysayers, this guy has a very unique quality of leadership. What is it about his leadership qualities that brought us to this really historic moment, and which could lead to his Nobel Peace Prize if he actually achieves this?
Rachel, I think you ask a great question. I think people are so offended, some people, by some of his policies or some of his kind of extemporaneous remarks or his tweets or whatever, that they don't really look at the quality of the man. This is a person who really has built this gigantic worldwide brand. He was on television for many years, enjoying unprecedented success. He's an extraordinarily charismatic and personable guy. He's a great negotiator, and he's not frozen into the molds of the past. Right. He is, in some ways, an extemporaneous president. There's danger in that, I understand that, but I think in this kind of instance, and particularly in these one-to-one meetings, he is so charming. Look at, you know, how he met with the president of France and all the other leaders around the world, how, you know, he looks in the Chinese president. He can deal with people. He can get along with people. I think that this is a great, I mean, Kim's only met with some minor, you know, old-time Soviet kinds of leaders and with Dennis Rodman. Now he's going to meet Donald Trump, who's a movie star, and Kim, you know, is a big fan of Hollywood. I think that this will only work out well. I don't think the president will overcommit us. I think he's done enough negotiation. He's not going to be Pollyanna about it. He's not going to be pie in the sky. He's not going to be naive. He's going to deal with this erratic leader who's called. They've called each other all these bad names and all the rest of it. But I think that this can really work out to be something historic.
Well, stay tuned for that.
I'm juiced about it.
But I don't know that, even if it does work out, I don't know that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee would give it to him. They'd probably give it to they'd probably give it to Kim Jong Un before they would give it to Donald Trump.
Or the South Koreans, maybe.
All right. Also, Geraldo, big news this past week. You know, it was last week that the Oakland mayor, a woman by the name of Libby Schaaf, essentially warned people who were in California illegally that she had heard from people in law enforcement or from somebody that ICE was going to have some raids. And if you're in the country illegally, essentially, she said, run. The President of the United States found that to be terrible and said this about the mayor yesterday.
What the mayor of Oakland did the other day was a disgrace. They had close to 1,000 people. Many of them, they say 85% of them were criminals and had criminal records. So instead of taking in 1,000, they took in a fraction of that, about 150. And she said, get out of here. And she's telling that to criminals. And it's certainly something that we're looking at with respect to her individually. What she did is incredible and very dangerous from the standpoint of ICE and Border Patrol. Very dangerous.
She weighed in yesterday. She said, I am proud to live in a country where everyone can criticize elected officials. There's been some suggestion that perhaps she should be brought up on obstruction of justice charges, and apparently the DOJ is looking into what she did. Geraldo?
Well, you know, I don't think there's a criminal liability for the mayor unless she used official records or secret information. From what I hear, it was scuttlebutt. It was unofficial. She got it from several sources.
But she was speaking
and decided
as
to do this
an
very,
official.
very controversial thing.
And the intent?
I don't think it's obstruction. I think there's a much more profound issue at stake here. In Arizona, if you'll recall, Arizona passed some draconian anti-immigration laws. The Obama administration sued the state of Arizona. It went all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. The Supreme Court ruled in large part that immigration is for the federal government's, it's their purview, it's their bailiwick. The federal government has priority in this regard. Now, the California case, I have no doubt, but it also will go to the Supreme Court. If the Arizona precedent holds, then California will have to yield to the federal government. But I still think, because this issue is so fraught with controversy, because there are such passionate views on both sides of the issue, and you see how California is so different than some other states, Alabama, for instance, in terms of its point of view, you're going to never have the kind of smooth interface between local, state, and federal government on the issue of immigration. It's going to be something that I think right now, I saw that Denver case that you had on about the undocumented, the illegal immigrant who caused the fatal car crash, and there was a detainer on him that the local government would not honor. Why doesn't the federal government make it a practice of getting a warrant signed by a magistrate or a judge? If you get a warrant, then the local people have no choice. They'll be in contempt of court if they refuse the warrant from a federal judge or a magistrate. It makes ICE's job a little more complicated, but it solved this constitutional dilemma. I think that's the way to go in the meantime.
Thank you, Geraldo.
Well, it's just too bad they couldn't cooperate with ICE like everybody else.
Well,
It's supposed to. All right. Geraldo, have a great weekend out there in Cleveland.